go live more on YouTube and to put my voice out there. A voice like mine is one that strives in this day and time to be more positive, not to be caught up in, trauma bonding and misery loves company and, getting the fit in. Did you hear who died last week? Or, I found that unfortunately we've been conditioned, particularly as black people, we've been conditioned to, share our energy on the negative spectrum, you know. And when it comes time to, okay, let's talk about some solution-based, things that we ourselves can begin to enact, we just don't give ourselves the permission to do that, around the world we are seen as, downtrodden people, people to take advantage of. If you want to set up a business, go into the black community. If you want to control the real estate, go into the black community. So this is not going to be that type of video. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I've been doing this for like 30 years. I have a whole lot of content on YouTube. I have a whole lot of content on, Facebook and Instagram. And, you can see a progression, from myself over those years. And I've said some pretty deep things, on all of those platforms. But it's really based on, what are you doing now? What are you going to do now to strive to live up to the consciousness, that you espouse? I've read, 10,000 or more books on all types of different subject matter. Back in the days in the 90s when we first became conscious, or my generation became conscious, we were just committed to becoming the best knowers. Peace, Sister Missy. We was committed to being the best knowers, becoming the best knowers. Knowledge itself was considered a lot of times, you had to be down with a particular distinct group, whether it was the Nation of Islam or whether it was the 5% Nation, a lot of times it was more of those groups, You might find someone who was into Egyptology, and a lot of times what we began to know, it was controlled by a particular breakout group, Dr. York, back in the days, a lot of these different groups were competing for, the attention, of Black America. And each one was saying that, if you want to make your conditions a little bit better here in America, well, you got to become a Muslim, or you got to become, a Moor, or you got to become a 5%er, or you got to become this or that, and like I said, a lot of times it was about, becoming the best knower. But as far as practicing, the consciousness that you began to, learn about, a lot of times we wasn't necessarily practicing what we preach. A lot of times, like consciously we was reading all this material, but as far as the lives that we were living, we still had our stomach filled up on America's, diet. You know what I mean? Sugary drinks and, Burger King and McDonald's and, all of these things, and we were still obligated to working jobs, that we didn't necessarily create for ourselves, So we were saying things like, yo, I got to go to the slave, or I got to go to the plantation. And we just we normalized a consciousness of someone taking advantage of us, and I participated in that. I participated in that for a time. I've always been a student, and I always was into learning, and like my sister Ella talks about, the buffet style of learning. I don't claim to be any one thing at this point in time. And even back then, I really wasn't into claiming to be one thing. I wasn't really trying to get into fit in. I was about learning how to formulate my own thoughts, learning how to strive to improve my condition. And even now, 30 plus years later, I'm still on that path. There's an old saying that, when I was young, I was smart. So I was trying to change everybody else. But now that I'm older, I'm wise. So now I'm striving to change myself. That's the place that I'm in. I've learned that, it's not the best position to take to strive to be the best knower of a particular, thought process, whether it's Buddhist or whether it's Christian or whether it's 5%, or whether it's Islam or, whatever it is. It's not necessarily the best position to strive to portray yourself as the best knower, but what you should be doing is you should be striving to use that information, and use what you read and to decide for yourself where you want to take your life. Don't let nobody tell you that, 5%ers don't do this or Christians don't do that, or, all of that may be true, and I've taken the time to study a lot of those fields that I'm talking to you about. And I've been able to find a lot of truth in those fields, and I've strived to apply those truths to my life. And then there's other things that I didn't necessarily find to be true, or at least I didn't find to be true for me, So I gave myself permission to take what was good for me and to keep it moving, I'm not against any of, those houses of study, you know what I mean? Whether it's Buddhist, whether it's Christian, whether it's Islamic, whether it's Moorish, I'm not against that. I'm not against people who claim that, this is their house and this is what gives them sustenance. This is what gives them faith. I appreciate, people of faith. I just, more so like, the same way I am, don't try to control me and I won't try to control you. We are all human beings with different perspectives. We're all human beings with different outlooks based upon what we have studied, based upon how we grew up, based upon how we lived and, and what the experiences that we had following a particular thought process. And, I appreciate perspectives more so now than ever before. I stand in my truth. I stand in the way I see things. And if you ask me, they say that truth doesn't mind being questioned. It's a lie that minds being questioned. You know what I mean? Truth doesn't mind being questioned. So the things that I speak about, whether I'm on Instagram or whether I'm on Facebook or, whether I'm on here on YouTube, these are things that I'm striving to practice, not to portray myself as the best knower or master, come listen to me, but I'm trying to show you what it looks like, what a life looks like. That's striving to take responsibility and accountability for how I think, why I think that way, and what I'm trying to do with my life. You know what I mean? I'm a sensitive brother. You know, I'm a Pisces. You know, and Pisces are very spiritual. Pisces are, you know, somewhat empathic. And, you know, for those who know me personally, it's hard for me sometimes to live in a world that's hateful. You know, it's hard for me to live in a world that's, you know, corrupt, you know, that's racist, that's bigoted, you know, that's prejudiced. It's hard for me to live in that type of world. You know, it's hard for me to accept the lot that black people particularly have been put in, you know, to never know their purpose, to never connect to God or source or creator, you know, to just exist, not to live, you know, to feel that they are to be obligated for their whole lives to a particular job or a particular neighborhood or a particular relationship, you know, or a particular relationship. Sister Missy says you don't have to dress up the truth. You know, the truth, you know, stands naked, you know, as they say, you know, no airs, no trying to, you know, convince you or whatever. And again, that's why it's so important for you to live in your truth. You know, I'm not spending no time at this point trying to convince other people that my outlook, that my way of doing things is the best way to do things. You know, no matter how much I love them, no matter how much I might care for them, I know that, you know, they have free will just like I have free will. They have the right to study and learn and experience and make mistakes if they, you know, need be. You know, who am I? You know, who am I to tell someone how to live? You know, I can tell them that they have a purpose in life that's better than being a victim. You know, I could tell them that, you know, God didn't make you or create you to be a sufferer, you know, to trauma bond, you know, to be someone who seeks company through misery, you know. And if you seek company through misery, then you strive for with whoever to be the captain of that misery. You know, I'm the captain in this clique of misery. Who wants that? You know, they talk about crabs in the barrel. You know, I'm one who's trying to get out the barrel, you know, and I'm one who believes that I've gotten out the barrel, you know, to a degree. What you mean? You got out the barrel? You free? I'm free in my thought process. I'm free in my thinking. I'm free in the way that I feel about my life. You know, I haven't necessarily won the battle of total freedom as far as my, you know, my job or my, you know, or things of that nature, even though, you know, I've been working with young people for 30 plus years, you know what I mean? Even though I've been able to bring, you know, the best of me and my evolution, I believe, to the thought process of the youth that I'm working with, whether they listen to me or not, that's on them. But at least I planted those seeds, you know what I mean? So, you know, the people that I know as adults, you know, the people that I grew up with, the people that I, you know, that I know now, you know, I don't hide who I am. You know, I don't hide my truth under a basket or under the bed. You know, I speak from my truth. Whether they want to listen to me or not and take more value in their lives, I hope that they will. You know what I mean? I hope that these seeds, you know, may take root and sprout at some time, at some point in time. You know what I mean? Whether it's the near future or maybe it might be, you know, sometime in the future. You know, some of the best books that I've ever read were written by, you know, people that never became famous. You know, people that wasn't, you know, I've studied, you know, of course, Malcolm and Martin and Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey and Sister Souljah, you know, to name a few. I've studied, you know, a lot of these things, but some of the best books that I have ever read were written by just someone who hoped and prayed that they can write a book to inspire and encourage someone. You know what I mean? They didn't know who it was. They didn't know who this book, would fall in the hands of. They just hoped and prayed that their life would have enough, and their experiences and their knowledge would have enough weight to inspire someone, to awaken, to take their lives seriously, to begin the process of loving yourself, committing yourself to the process and practice of healing, of regenerating, of redeeming yourself, and to let your light shine. And that's how I speak. That's the essence that I speak from. I'm giving you, I'm a practitioner. I'm an apprentice. You know what I mean? I'm a student. If you ask me what I am, well, what are you, Brother Mike? You sound like this, or you sound like that, or you sound like the other thing. Yeah, I may sound like some of those things because I'm a studious brother. You know what I mean? And I've studied a whole lot of different philosophies and spiritual paths and what have you, And I believe that all of these things are relevant for whoever needs those philosophies, who needs those spiritual pathways, even when it gets to, like learning a different language. That's been one of my strongest hopes and desires, for myself, a personal goal. I want to become, at least bilingual, but, hopefully as I take more and more control of my own life, and I become more and more free to live my life as I best see fit, I can see myself, becoming, I don't know if you call it trilingual, I don't know, whatever it is, I want to continue to learn, I want to continue to grow as long as I have life in this body. I'm not striving to limit myself in any way, and I'm striving to overflow the best of me into the world, into the lives of others. I'm not going to come to you, because I'm upset about, my life is not going the way I think it should, so I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm angry, I'm bent out of shape, and I'm going to try to form a relationship with you based upon you suffering my abuse. You know what I mean? That's how a lot of people live today, and that's not how we're supposed to be living. Each one of us, we got to look at the man or woman in the mirror, and we're supposed to be striving to remake our lives in love, remake our lives in truth, in compassion, in forgiveness, and you practice these things with yourself first, because if you don't practice these things with yourself, you can't practice it with no one else outside of you. You know what I mean? So we got a lot of work to do. And like I was saying before, I was talking about, how sensitive I can be, how I'm a Pisces, how I'm an empath, and I'm not trying to put my sign over anyone else's sign. I would advocate that you should try to study what your zodiac sign is. You should try to, I'm not asking you to become Miss Cleo, I'm not one of those, my sun is in Jupiter, and, I'm not, one of those types of people. I'm not really getting that deep with it, but on the face of it, I would say that every sign has its positive traits and it has its negative traits, and the time of year that you are born in, it definitely has been proven that you are assigned a particular positive traits that if you follow will help you to make your life, powerful, a blessing onto yourself and onto others, and then you have negative traits. I'm not even really going to tell y'all the negative traits that are assigned to Pisces, but I will say, thank God that I've overcome many of them, and as long as I continue to push and I continue to strive, Sister Ella says she aspires to study some of the Miss Cleo stuff. That's what's up. you know. But as long as I continue to strive and I continue to push, you know, I can make the best usage of my life, no matter how I'm feeling, you know. Like they said, it's not about being motivated. It's not about all the time feeling at your best, because sometimes you're not going to be motivated. Sometimes you're not going to feel at your best, you know. It's about the discipline, you know, making yourself do what you know you need to do based upon the goals that you have. You know, you have the right to set personal goals for where you want to take your life. You know, you don't have to just be a soul in a body and somebody else controls where that body has to go and what that body has to do. You don't have to live like that. Just like I'm sitting in my car right now, you know, my car can take me anywhere. It's not going to take me anywhere unless I make it take me somewhere. So I have to know where I want to go. I have to know what I want to do. You know what I mean? And then my car will assist me in getting there. This is the same way our bodies are. You know, the real us is soul, is spirit. The body is just a vehicle. A lot of times we make the mistake of thinking that the body is the real us, and we give power or allow the body to take us where the body wants us to be. And a lot of times the body doesn't have rationale. The body doesn't have supreme intelligence. You know what I mean? The body just has emotions, and the body wants what it wants when it wants it. You know, so this is why a lot of times, you know, we get caught up in, you know, the emotions that are attached to the physical body is anger, is wrath, is procrastination and lust. You know, this is how we've become a society that is ruled by fostering obligation and addictions, you know. And everybody has a form of a particular addiction that is most, you know, close to themselves. You know, yeah, you might not be addicted to substance abuse, but you may be someone, you know, that is a comfort eater, you know, or what is called a boredom eater. You know, I'm bored. Let me go eat something. You know, I don't like this particular job or this particular relationship, so I'm a comfort eater. I'm going to keep on feeding myself because it feels good to eat. But if overdone, it begins to rob you of your health, and particularly in the society that we're living in, where, you know, it's not about health, it's about making money, you know. So a lot of things that we eat in this society, we shouldn't really be eating. You know, that's right. We are the drivers. We are in control. Stop asking. Chill out. Stop asking others to take the wheel. You know what I mean? That's exactly right. You know, nobody can know better than you what to do with your life. You know, and it's a shame a lot of times when I walk through the hood that I see people who have lived their whole lives being downtrodden, being misery loves company, being obligated to others, but never knowing how to love themselves. You know, even myself, I didn't become conscious until, you know, the beginning of the 90s, you know, through hip hop and, you know, reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. That's what introduced me to consciousness, you know. And in that time, I was like 20 years old, 21 years old. I had absorbed so many negative habits, so many negative perspectives that it's taken me. I'm in my early 50s now. It's like now I'm finally becoming free. You know, free of my fear of what other people may think. You know, fear of trying to fit into this system or that system. You know, the truth will make you free, but your truth will make you free. That's a popular saying. Your truth will make you free. How will your truth make you free? Your truth will enable you to figure out what you want to do with your life and make you free to conceptually to actually do it. Now, you might not be free. You might still be working a job. You might still be working, living in a particular neighborhood. You still may be in a particular relationship. you know. And a lot of times those people may not be thinking the way you're thinking. You know, they're used to holding on to you. They're used to trauma bonding with you. They're used to misery loves company with you. They're not going to give you permission, you know, to practice your truth. You know, they're not going to give you permission to become free. You're going to have to take that, you know. And that's where a lot of us, you know, that's where a lot of us stop. Because I don't want to leave my brother. I don't want to leave my boo. You know what I mean? I've been messing with her, or I've been, you know, with her for 10 years now, or 15 years. I don't want to leave, you know. But what about how bad it feels to be obligated to something you don't believe in anymore? Do you know what I mean? Or somebody that you don't believe in anymore. Or you know you love them, but you don't believe that they're going to do what they need to do to put themselves first, to love themselves so that they can match their love with your love. So you have to make a decision. You know, I may have to get missing. I may have to get low. I may have to move on from this relationship. Not necessarily cutting someone off, you know, because a lot of times when people talk about cutting someone off, they talk about it from a spirit and emotion of anger, you know, and bitterness. You know, I love a whole lot of people that I have realized that the way they think is not compatible to the way I think. You know, the way they feel about society and look at society is not compatible with the way that I look at society. You know, and I'm going to have to, you know, move on. Or I'm going to have to let them follow what they follow, and I'm going to have to begin to follow what I follow. You know what I mean? So I'm coming up on 27 minutes. You know, I gotta, you know, I see at least 5 people. You know, I want to try to wrap this up by, I'm not going to do one of my marathon, you know, try to give you every single thing that's in my mind type of joint. You know, I'm hoping that from what I've shared tonight, I'm hoping that there might be some buzzwords. There might be some individuals, like I mentioned Malcolm, I mentioned Martin, I mentioned Booker T. Washington, I mentioned Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, you know, Fannie Lou Hamer. I've mentioned, you know, some things. I've mentioned some concepts, you know, spiritual pathways, such as, you know, what is known as Christianity, what is known as Buddhism, what is known as Islam, or what is known as the 5 percenters or 120 lessons. You know, it's upon you. I'm not going to try to control what you know, use to stand yourself up to help you to find your truth in this day and time. I believe that should be your decision. You know, you deserve the same freedom that I've taken for myself. I'm not going to let no one tell me how to think or what to believe, and I wouldn't try to tell you what to think or what to believe. Again, the only thing that I'll say is this world has fallen far short of what our creator or the source or universe has intended. And why is it fallen so far short of being all that it can be? You know, the world could be an oasis. It can be, you know, a place of peace and cooperation, you know, and not just for black people, but for all well-meaning people of truth and justice and consciousness and empathy. You know what I mean? You know, should I share this? I'm a Trekkie. You know, well, I'm not a Trekkie. I'm not dressing up like Mr. Spock and you know, Captain Kirk and going to no conventions and all of that. I'm not practicing like that, but conceptually, I like a lot of times science fiction about, let's stick with Star Trek. Star Trek, away from the spaceships and the beam me up Scotty and, you know, the phaser guns and all of that is like, you know, flashy, you know, things to help to keep you interested. But the basic premise of Star Trek is that World War III had occurred in the Star Trek mythos. World War III had occurred. And once again, another war of domination instead of cooperation. Another war of domination had been, prosecuted. This country, this government versus that government. These trauma bonding groups of influence versus those trauma bonding groups of influence. And the world was almost destroyed in this third World War. And that more conscious heads came out of that World War and they made peace with one another. They said instead of us trying to dominate one another, we should strive to cooperate with one another. Wanting for my brother, my sister, what I want for myself. What do I want for myself? I want knowledge. I want wisdom. I want truth. I want understanding. I want power, to create my family and my neighborhoods and take care of the needs of my people the same way you want for you. We can unite on what we agree about instead of kill each other off based upon what we don't agree about. You know what I mean? Skin color, language, ethnicity, and all of those other things that a lot of times we use to divide ourselves. Let's come together based upon, what we have in common. We want safety. We want security. We want health. We want well-being. Let's strive to spread that out, across the world. This is why I love Star Trek, And then, of course, once they, got past all of these barriers to peace and love and what have you, then they got on the spaceships and they went out into space and they found the same alien racism, the same alien bigotry, the same alien prejudice that they had defeated here on Earth. You know what I mean? But that's another story. I'm gonna close it down now because I don't want to go too long. But I made a promise to a few people that I was going to strive to come on Sunday nights and, to reinvigorate, my podcast. Some of y'all who have been hanging with me for a while, y'all will remember that in 2018, I was doing a podcast for about 6 months. And I was renting a studio at the time, and it was pretty good. Sister Ella came through, to be a co-host with me a couple of times. And, the viewership started going up. There were people on Facebook, and we would try to broadcast on Facebook and YouTube. There were people who, gave a strong vote of confidence, and they liked it. They'd listen to the show while they was doing their laundry or while they was cooking. They was cooking on Sunday nights. You know what I mean? While they was ironing their clothes, they would just, not just look at the podcast, but they would turn it up and listen to it. And the podcast became something too heavy for me to handle at the time. The studio that I was renting at the time, it was like $200 a month, and all of that was coming out of my pocket. I didn't have like a way for the people, and there was people who asked me, how could we help you financially or otherwise, to keep this going, and I didn't really have a way for them to do that at the time. So, that podcast, ended, you know what I mean? But since that time, we got YouTube, we got Instagram, we got Facebook, and a whole lot of other platforms that I'm not even aware of yet, and I'm gonna strive to keep this going. I'm gonna strive to keep this going, to keep this energy. I hope that some of my, friends and family who came through, ask some questions next time if you may, or even after this, let me know what you thought of, this first joint. I honestly, this is why it's about discipline. This is why it's about setting goals for yourself and knowing what you want to do, because you're not always going to feel motivated. You're not always going to feel, encouraged. I didn't feel so good today. I don't know what it was, but I wasn't moving in my best energy, But I just knew that I had promised some very special people that I was going to come on tonight. So I just stuck with that. You know, I just stuck with that promise. I just stuck with that energy. And, you know, here I am tonight. You know, I want to shout out, you know, I want to shout out Sister Ella. I want to shout out Missy. I want to shout out Teresa. I want to shout out Veronica Coney. You know, it's always interesting to me that I've been striving to be an activist and an organizer in the black community where I live and in other places for 30 plus years. And I don't want this to be a takedown on our brothers, because, you know, at times there was some strong brothers that was running with me. But it's always been the sisters, it's always been the women a lot of times that step up first. You know, I believe maybe part of that is part of that is the cultural conditioning that has been put upon us in the black community. I know sometimes that, you know, brothers have a bad rap. You know, a lot of people don't really have faith in the brothers, but I'm a brother. You know what I mean? And I've been on my square. I've been for 30 plus years, you know, striving to represent, you know. So I want to thank all of the strong sisters who always are the first ones in line a lot of times to support. But I also want to say to the brothers, we need your presence. We need you to begin to look at your life and figure out how you can begin to heal yourself and begin to show up, you know, in your strength, because your strength is needed. It's needed in the families and it's needed in the community. So having said that, I'm going to say peace, love, and elevation to everyone. Your presence, it means so much to me. All right. Peace, y'all. All right. I'm trying to turn this